All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wheel Tapping number 23. We are going to be talking about Ireland. We're also streaming this a little live. More on that later. But first, let me introduce the man who needs no introduction, but I'm giving it to him anyway, Mr. Tony Fryer. How are you doing this morning, Mr. Tony?
Hey, good buddy. I am doing pretty good over here in Denver.
Oh, how's your weather? It's been a little on the toasty side on our side of the state.
Oh no, we've got a little rain. Like yesterday was a completely hot, humid, and wet day. It was nice change, but I prefer it just hot and dry.
Fair enough. It's hopefully it kind of calms down. I mean, sorry, those guys up in the Pacific Northwest, they're just getting beat up, but
Yes.
sorry about that. That sucks.
108 in Seattle is crazy.
Right? That's insane. And they're on a higher latitude than I am. I'm like, So I feel bad for that, definitely. So we are up bright and early on a holiday weekend because we need to talk about Ireland. And scheduling's getting a little harder now because Mr. Tony's starting to play a lot in person. So congratulations, A, and B. What have you been playing?
Excuse me. I don't know. Lots of different train games actually.
Right. Getting lots of stuff in. Any unspecified prototypes getting played or anything like that?
Well, yeah. I guess that's why the reason for my silence. Yes.
So
yes, a lot of an unspecified prototype.
Awesome. It's exciting.
And other fantastic games.
I'll take it. It's still quiet here. My core 18XX group is not quite back together. Kelly, we still game on Monday nights with y'all, but he's the only one right now. So he's not going to drive down so we can play 2-player games. That's a little much, but we're trying to get a game day together. So hopefully soon. I need to move some laminations around.
Yeah. You definitely do, man. And rust some trains in person.
Yeah, there's something about rusting a train in person there's a certain joy to it, isn't there? Like right. You need to take that off your charter,
and they go no.
Speaking of train rust, we are talking about a game today. We are going to be talking about 18 Ireland. And hey, wow, we'll get into it in a second, but man, is it a weird train rust. More to come, spoilers, but we'll get into that. So real quick, 18 Ireland was designed. I didn't realize it was this young. It was designed in 2017 by Ian Scrivens. It's published by All Aboard, and it was in one of the recent waves. I want to say 3, so it's probably still available on the website. And it plays 3 to 6, but you seem to have a favorite amount of people here.
The higher the better, right? So I don't want to play Ireland with less than 5. I do want to play Ireland with 6.
Interesting. Okay. So
somebody's going to go home crying. So I like
that. and it was great because that person, Kelly, went bankrupt the last time we played. So it can happen to anybody. It really can.
Anytime you finish higher than Kelly, that's a good day.
I call that a win. I'm playing for second, baby. So let's see, you've played this a bunch. I've only played this about 4 to 5 times. How many times have you got it in?
Well, it's an interesting story. The first time I played it was in January of 2017 at Chattanooga.
Okay.
Fell in love with the game. Bought a prototype on the spot. But I've only played it a total of 13 times. Sometimes it's, the game has an edge, right? And it's difficult to get it to the table with certain groups. But when you find a group, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's edges. What do we like to say? We like to say very sharp edges. Yeah, pointy elbows, bony elbows. Oh yeah, it can be a little rough. So you've been exploring this for a lot longer than I have, and I was just told that it's a great game, and so far I'm enjoying it.
I have 2 bankruptcies in Ireland too in those 13 plays. So
Do you?
Yeah.
And you're one of those people who, when you go bankrupt, you're like, who can I take with me?
Well, in the last play, I took myself down. I took another player down and hurt another one. But I knew there was a risk to me, but I thought I could avoid that risk. Like, hey, the 3 of us, the guys I'm talking about, we were all toast anyway. It was
Right.
the other 3 guys that were winning the game. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Awesome. So for those of you watching at home, I kind of have our wheel tapping shirt. The all I care about is trains, bourbon, and like 3 people. One of them is on screen now. The other one is probably upstairs sitting on the couch. And you have I love this track shirt, Tony. I haven't seen this one yet.
Oh yeah, we did some Pride shirt.
I love it. I might have to pick me one up.
We can do that.
Need extra fat, and then it'll fit.
We made some regular ones too.
Okay, good. I don't mind. I love the Pride one. I think it's great. All right, so let's start talking about Mr. Ireland and all of its glory. So we're going to start with the private auction and just kind of what lays it out. Where does this one start to get? This one deviates from 30 in a lot of ways. So I think we'll kind of talk about that in each of the phases. And the private auction starts out normal, but then after that, things start to deviate quite a bit. Tony, why don't you take us through a little bit of the private auction and all its parts and that initial stock round?
Yeah, sure. Well, what doesn't deviate from 1830 is the style of the auction for the private companies. And of course, one of those companies is the directorship, right, of one of the railroads that starts out. And those railroads all start out as 5-share companies. They start out as these minor companies, 5-share. And through the process of mergers that we'll talk about quite a bit, I suspect, they can become 10-share companies. And late in the game, you can actually directly start a 10-share company, which is a bit of a tactic. We can talk about that too. And capitalization is incremental. So, you'll earn your money as you go. You won't get it all up front. Money is not on sale for half off, as we like to say.
Money is full price and then some.
Yeah, that's fair point, Chris. In this game, it does feel like every dollar costs $1.50.
Oh, yeah.
We'll get to that too, right?
Oh, for sure.
And then when we talk about the train rush, there is certainly a train rush in this game. There's an aspect of the train rush I don't particularly. What's the right word? I don't want to say enjoy. I don't particularly enjoy. I do enjoy it, but I wish there was one different aspect. We'll talk about it.
Fair enough. So the otherwise pretty straightforward. When we get into the map and track, we'll talk, because this one is a dual gauge game, and the hex screens and dual gauge seem to always go a little hand in hand. But this one's going to take on things a little differently. So I think that's a great point to move right into the yellow phase. So we'll kind of march right into the map, track, and stock market. So we talked about the fact that it is dual gauge, and it's also a relatively tight tile set. I don't recall a game that we've played, maybe 1882, I should say, where I've checked the tile set as much as I check it. Because I tell you what, 9 times out of 10, when I need a specific tile, it ain't there. I'm constantly going to the tile set trying to pre-plan my moves, and it's not that A, they might not be there. It's that B, it might have narrow gauge where you want full gauge, and you might have full gauge where really you want narrow gauge, because the narrow gauge here, it's different. Unlike, I guess the easiest comparison would probably be Sicily, since we've recently talked about that. Narrow gauge, your trains run over it just like a normal train. They get hurt. They have to. It takes them twice the movement points to run over it.
In Sicily, but they can run over it just like normal track. Aside from having to take a little extra time to get through the mountains and what it's, that's accounting for changing track, changing gauge, putting you on whatever, moving your trains. Where this one, completely different, and it takes a little getting used to, because basically the narrow gauge, when it comes off of a stop, the narrow gauge is designed to pick up doinks, ticks, towns, whatever you want to call them, off of that, and then they are just bonus added to the city if they're connected via only narrow gauge. So there's this weird thing where you're trying to build track to get somewhere, but you also want to build narrow gauge off to kind of increase your city values. So you have some people are like, well, I want to go to that doink because I need my path to go that way, and other people are like, I want to go to that doink just because I want money. So there's this weird struggle, and so that's where it deviates completely from, Sicily, and the way it handles dual gauge is very different. And even to the point where Nick, who kind of hates the track in Sicily, doesn't mind it nearly so much in this game, right? Like he kind of enjoys building up that little bonus structure on the side of tracks, where I think in Sicily he finds it very annoying and abusive. I think he still hates it, though. It's above Sicily. It's above 49, but he still hates it.
Yeah, I think, but he tolerates it with a lot less complaining. I think is the best way to put it.
Yeah, the differences that you pointed out in the way that Ireland implements the narrow gauge, I personally think is very elegant, and it's one of my favorite narrow gauge implementations, because as you build that narrow gauge track in Ireland, unlike 49, you don't run the trains on the narrow gauge. The narrow gauge, when it connects into towns and cities, it adds the value of the towns and cities on the narrow gauge to the. I just think that's spectacular, because we don't have to worry about, like in 49, oh, this is one movement point, these are two movement points, right? You just run your trains on the regular track, and revenue from the outlying areas is brought into the cities and towns via these narrow gauge tracks. I can easily in my mind imagine them as little independent, railroads that have like one route or two routes, little local regional railroads that are just bringing people and goods into the city.
Exactly.
Which is super cool. Just super cool. But yeah, like what you were saying about the tile set, it makes it a bit of a beast, because, like imagine this green tile with, 4 spokes on it, and one of them's narrow gauge, where it could be in any of those positions, and there's only like one of that one and one of that one. So if I used it here, well, sorry, Chris, you're going to have to go this way, and that tile set, if you're aware that there's only one of these, and you're paying it, if you're a tragic track layer, Mike Holden, you can really do some tragic track in this game for sure.
Yeah, and it's it can be a little rough, and I mean there's a lot of it where you're kind of struggling with your own routes, and sometimes playing heads up on your own things, you don't even have time to worry about cutting other people off. But it's not the freewheeling, we'll just make routes. That if you like that, which is one of the things I think Nick loves about a game, is building great big routes and creating interesting runs. And I think that the narrow gauge inhibits that a little bit, but not in a bad way. I kind of like it. It's a struggle, and it's a new puzzle, is kind of the way I look at it.
Correct. Right. It is a tight map.
Yeah. So speaking of the map, let me bring that bad boy up here. So it's, gee, big surprise. It's kind of like Ireland. It's shaped like a potato. It's just kind of big and, tall, and a lot like England in the way that the meat's in the middle. And then there's not as much action up in the top section here, up in these areas, but it also depends on the way companies come out, because that's going to make a very big difference as to what you can open. Because do we talk about how the companies come out, Tony, at all?
Not yet. We haven't.
Yeah, I kind of think we need to.
Yeah, let's do it on the map here, because some of these companies are in challenging locations. They're not all created equal. And before the game, you kind of shuffle them up. That little purple one in Dublin's always the first miner, but you shuffle them up and they come out in that order, right? So this miner will be the next one to be opened, then this one, then this. Of course, they're sold at auction, right? So
right.
You can split something up. Maybe somebody else buys it. Who knows? If no one buys a minor company during a stock round, the top one is removed from the game, and one's removed from the game anyway, just randomly at the beginning. But yeah, that order and where those companies are really matters a lot in terms of like opening companies and getting them into the stock market and getting them.
Yeah. Again, kind of shades of Sicily again, right? Like where that whole opening order is very predetermined, and you don't have foreknowledge as to what's coming up, right? Like, but you can look through the stack, isn't it?
Yeah. It's known information.
Right. So it's not like you can make a rough plan. For instance, when we played, the miners that I had last time did not correspond with any of the first companies coming out. A, I got them cheap, but B, now I know why I got them cheap. So what I found was that I actually sat back and invested for the first couple stock rounds, because there was no companies that worked well with the miners I had. So I might as well just sit back, make some cash, collect, and then go on from there. But it's definitely something to watch in this game, because if they're scattered all over, or you have to open this one down here in Cork, you're kind of in no man's land down here in the bottom. So, and I speak from experience on that.
Some of these companies are very challenging. Do you have a graphic of the stock market, by the way?
Oh, I do.
So yeah, look at that stock market there.
It's very tall.
30s, 38s, 60s. Like, these are not high valued companies. And what ends up happening, you can see those red squares there. You can start a company as high as $100 a share, but they typically do this like retrograde movement, right? Because you're going to be the stock market. The stock market is lively in this game, right? Because you're going to go backwards because you didn't have an initial train. You probably issue a share here, a share there as you go. And, a lot of times these companies do this little retrograde. Then they go into the yellow, and you may close them. You can see in the corner there's a little close thing. You can actually close one of these liabilities, and then eventually they'll kind of work their way out. Of course, some of these companies will disappear into minors and things, into majors.
Right. But yeah,
it's fun. And the stock market is lively in terms of, like, at least in my group, shares are being issued, bought, sold, redeemed, hand over fist. Like, there's a lot of action. It's not a surprise to look in the stock market at the end of one round and see nothing in it. It's not a surprise to look at it and see 8 certificates in it. It's lively action in my group.
Right. There's certainly a lot of movement. I see a lot of, like, the last time we played, I saw a lot of companies in the yellow. Like, we saw a good 3 to 4 companies just running down there, which again doesn't go against your cert limit, which in a poor game, getting to cert limit can be a little tough anyway. So it's kind of a mixed bag on that front. The other thing on the
you just said it, man. You just said it. Poor game. So the stock market and the activity there the tight tile set, and part of that tile set is some of these places aren't rich, like that EM spot right there in the middle that you're showing. In yellow, that's a 10. And it only
Right.
goes up to green, right? It doesn't, like there
But
is poverty in this game.
yeah, so the key is can you bring some lines down here to pick up all these dits that are off the side and turn that 20 into a 50, you know? And of course, not some people will help you, a lot of people won't. And will that tile be available? The other thing to point out is a lot of the terrain costs money, and I'm not talking like 10, 20. We're talking 40, 80,
Yeah.
100.
If you lay that tile with narrow gauge, then it costs nothing.
Right. So it incentivizes you to do that for sure.
Yeah, yeah. But the poverty in this game, it's palpable, right? Like,
Yes.
an $8 per share payout is amazing early in the game, right? It's so here's the deal. It's a $4,000 bank, a 4,000-pound bank, and the game still takes 4 or 5 hours to play.
Right.
Okay, that means money is dribbling out of the bank. It's not pouring out of the bank.
Right. And the other thing is, we talk about a poor game, and I think one of the ways you could tell a game is poor is how cheap the trains are. And I think that's a good time to, right? So we're going to kind of migrate to the green phase at this point, because the trains, they don't cost a lot. Like you can get a permanent, I want to say, for $600. So it's not super expensive. And the twos are cheap, and you don't see this escalation in price, but still not easy to get them because you don't have a ton of money going into your company, for sure.
Definitely. Money's tight, so no matter what the trains cost, they're sometimes going to be a challenge to get, right? You'll have to, hoard or issue a share. You only issue one at a time, But yeah, however, there is, when the trains rust, there is a mechanism that provides cheap train to companies that are perhaps struggling, shall we say, to afford a good train. So the non-permanent trains are two-sided. So the 4 hex train, when it rusts, you flip it over, and it becomes a 2 hex train.
Right.
When it rusts, it still goes into the bank, so you still lose your train. But you can buy them back as a 2H train. And so what ends up happening, I would say often, is struggling companies, when they get caught trainless, instead of buying that nice, 6H or 8H train, they have to buy one of these already rusted, smaller, cheaper trains.
Because you have to buy the cheapest train available.
The cheapest train in the bank, right? And here's the thing, right? Like that basically keeps a player on life support with at some point in the game, later in the game, when the permanents are out, you will either go over this hump or under this hump. And if you're under this hump, you're on life support without a very high quality of life at all. Because, man, I just had to fork out, X money for this previously rusted train that I may not even get to run. And now I'm going to be on the hook for a better train without the money that I just spent on this train that I won't run. And so this is actually an aspect of the game I don't enjoy. Because,
okay.
If you're looking at a 6-player game and there's 3 players on this kind of life support, they're not having a great time. Am I still having a great time? Yes, but I'm not having a great. I wish, here's where I would do a variant maybe, right? Like, hey, look, when the trains rust, just throw them in the box. There's no cheap train. And then that might be uber brutal, where it's like, okay, players are dropping out a little quicker, but like maybe that's preferable. Just go watch TV. We'll be done soon.
It's definitely one of the tougher things I think about this game is getting my head around the train rush and the train roster. And you know what? I had the exact same problem with Sicily, because I keep thinking that the train I buy is permanent and it's not. So I struggle a little bit. So I did mention that the permanent train is actually $440 if you buy the 8H, right? So
Right.
kind of cheap, but if you're stuck with, you know, a $150 3H sitting on the backside of another train, you're stuck. It's not good.
Yeah, the ones on the left are the rusted sides.
Right. And
That 1H, that's a great train. That 1H, oh yeah, it's great.
it's good if you're in Dublin and you can just get to one thing.
You've only got one.
Right. So I think we should talk real quick about how the hex trains actually run. So we kind of talked a little bit about picking up the extra doinks and stuff. But essentially, every line you cross between tiles counts as a hex. So that's the easiest way to count trains. So, you know, it's a 2 hex train will reach over 3 tiles, right? So they're not the harsh X trains, which come up every now and then, which literally count 0 or count the tile you start on and go from there. It's not one of those.
Yeah, these trains are hex sides.
Yeah, and then the other thing is that you don't. We talked about picking up those extra doinks and things off of cities. You don't actually count those in your run. Like, you don't have to count those. Anything that's connected just bulks up the city that they spawn from. So, and it has to be connected by track. So if you're going up to an X and it's got a doink on each side, you only get the one that you're connected to. You don't get them both. So it's, you know, kind of makes sense. So
While you have this graphic up here, one other train. This is semi shenanigany, but it kind of maybe situational. But once someone buys a 10H, you can trade your 8 or your 10 in on higher trains, right? So I could turn my 8 into a 10 or a diesel if I wanted to by paying the difference.
Right.
Which also then puts a permanent train into the bank still, again, you know, for someone else to purchase perhaps. So you know, when I upgrade my 8 to a diesel, now I just put an 8 in the bank. That could be helping someone avoid priority. So I'm hoping I make more money for my diesel, for example. But that train trade-in can be sometimes a tool as well.
Right. And it's almost necessary if you want to get to the diesel phase, because you know, at least in the games I see, getting there tends to be a little difficult. It doesn't happen. Yeah. The other thing to watch is there are definitely some limited numbers of the 8s, the 6s, and the 10s. So it can move pretty quick right through that, you know, right through this map can run very quickly, and that 8H that you had saved up money for might not be there, which, again, speaking a little bit from experience. And then the other thing is we didn't really talk about it so much in the stock market, but you can issue shares. And of course, the way this game works, the share issue is literally the last step in your company. So it comes after train buying.
It's the first thing.
First step, sorry. So you can buy trains with that money. So you just have to plan a little bit ahead. And it's only one, exactly.
One at a time. So at least you get the money up front, but you can't just issue a bunch and get a pile of money.
Exactly. Which Toady is prone to do in games that allow you to do that.
Me?
Kind of not throwing you under any buses here, but
Throw me under any trains.
Nope. So the train roster, very, very interesting. Trading in trains hex trains. I always, like I said, I always get caught out because I think my 6Hs are permanent and they tend not to be. So that was something that caught me out in everything. And it's just my brain doesn't think of a 6H as a 4 train in normal games, quote unquote. And
I understand that.
yeah, and frankly, in this game, especially later, you really need some of these longer running trains, because especially if you're opening those companies in that far north and south, you need some distance, because let me tell you, you got a lot of ground to cover if you're trying to come up from this company just even up to here. I mean, that's 3 hexes alone, and that's just one stop. Like, what the heck are you going to do? Again, speaking a little from experience, running out of cork stinks. You need a big train in that one.
If you have to start the cork company early, you just hope that orange company in Limerick didn't get started and someone laid that double doink in an evil manner.
Right, because you want to... Exactly.
Early game. These are all like situational scenarios, right? But,
right.
I mean, I guess that really illustrates it, right? Like you need to look at where the game is and who's open and the running order, and yeah.
One of the reasons we love these games, because it's not going to be the same every single time, right?
Your turn, Chris. Roll the dice and move. Nope.
Yeah. I prefer to spin the spinner, please. Thank you very much. All right. So excellent. I think that kind of wraps up trains, and we've kind of hinted around at some of the shenanigans that are abound in this game, and I think this is kind of the meat of the podcast, because shenanigans are ripe in this game and they are frequent. So, Tony, why don't you take us out with the big number one, and I can kind of chime in here and kind of go from there. Yeah.
Is shenanigans an Irish word? I don't know. Maybe it's very appropriate for this game if it is.
Oh, well, I mean, it's hard to pass around the shillelagh, but we'll see.
Yes. Hit you with it.
Exactly.
This game will hit you with it, or give you them. So, yeah, maybe more so than most titles. The format of wheel tapping, where we talk about the map, then the trains, then the shenanigans, is very appropriate for this episode, for this game, because in the map, we talked about the poverty that it creates with the tiles and that kind of stuff. Then we went into the trains and we talked about, they're cheap. Good luck buying them, right? Because of that poverty.
Exactly.
And as we all know that play these games, in the games that create these type of scenarios, the train ownership is what creates our liabilities, because we're on the hook for trains, right?
Indeed.
The heart of Ireland is this merger mechanic, and that is how one avoids liabilities early in the game until permanent trains make their appearance. This is how one avoids the liabilities that they don't want, and potentially, if you are experienced at the game, gifting another player with said liability. And it's the heart of the game. It's the most fascinating thing. I worship this mechanic. It's fantastic. And I guess the gist of it is these minor companies, they can merge into a major company. So, and they're 5-share guys, right? So I might have the director's certificate, which is 2 shares. Maybe you can only own 60%. So maybe I bought another one. I might have 3 shares. Bankpool's got one. Chris has one, right? This ownership of these miners is probably distributed around the table, because Chris, even though you're only earning, $8 a share, well, it's better than earning 0. So I guess I'll buy one of your share, right?
And also tends to happen that these companies tend to be lower in value. So more people tend to, like, the ones that are prime for takeover tend to be lower in value. And so more people tend to have it.
Share.
Right, because it's the only thing they could afford, right? Like,
right.
Which happens a lot. Like, you buy this share because it's the only thing you can buy right now.
So the way the mechanic works is two companies that are connected, right? They have a legal route to each other, can be merged. And so in the merger round, we'll go around the table in the priority order. And so, Chris, it's your turn. Are there two companies or three companies? You can do some rare. It's pretty rare. So it's generally two. Chris, is there a merger you would like to suggest? And the only conditions of Chris suggesting this merger are that the companies are connected, and that Chris owns at least one share in one of the companies involved. So Chris has one share of a company of mine and Randall's, and he says, "Yeah, those two." Now it goes to a shareholder vote. And
Yep.
turns out, people are voting yes and no. Each share is a vote. That is, and now it turns out Randall's the proud new owner of this cool, undercapitalized major company in the middle of the game with permanent trains not available yet. He's very thankful to you, Chris.
Yeah.
Right?
It's well, he should be. I mean, most people that play with me get gifts like that, so it's fair.
Exactly. And so here's some of the cool things: is the way that the pricing of the merged major company works is, one of the companies is probably going to go down in value, one of the companies probably going to go up in value, right? And so if there are shares in the bank pool, they will vote accordingly. So if there's two shares in the bank pool and the price of them would go up in the new company, they will vote yes. And if there's shares in the bank pool that would go down, they would vote no. So it lends to this strategic issuing of shares. I'm going to issue this share because my company is cheap, and if someone suggests a merger, that share is going to vote yes, and I will be rid of this minor company. So it adds another little layer onto issuing shares and buying shares as well, of course. Sometimes what happens is, Chris, you'll have one share of Randall's and one share of mine, and you suggest a merger, and let's say the merger happened. Guess what, buddy? Now you got two shares of this new undercapitalized mid-game major. Uh-oh, where the hell is priority? Because that sucker could be dumped on you.
Exactly. So
I am just in love with the merger mechanic in this game. It's amazing.
It's funny because when this game was kind of, I don't want to say pitched, but when I was told about it, and that's always seems to be like the thing that people would mention. Oh, is that the one where you can just cause two companies to merge? And it sounds big and scary, right? Like you're just like, so somebody could just merge my company away from me? Potentially,
Yes.
especially if you kind of have, if you're a little weak in your company and maybe you only have 2 out of the 3 shares, like you only have 40% instead of 60, and somebody has 60% in the other company proposing the merger, yeah, they can steal it, so you if you want to keep it, you need to have a defensible position. But somebody could also gang up on you and put in 2 of their companies against your one little one. And then you can't, even if you had 3, your full 60%, you still couldn't do anything about it because they've got more voting shares in the merger. Like you said, I have not encountered the 3-way merge yet, but it's certainly a weapon to be used in this game. So it's something you need to be aware of and cognizant, but I don't see it. It can be an interesting mechanic. It can be a lot of fun, and I think you'll get burned by it once, and then I think you'll learn a little bit, either A, to accept when it's going to happen and see it coming, or B, know how to handle it when it does. So, but when it happens in round 1 and you're kind of, now you're stuck with a lot less shares paying less, and you're down on share count for the next OR and a half because the company that was running later in the order just got absorbed out from under you. It can really put you behind if you're not careful.
When you mentioned, having a company taken away from you, that can certainly happen. And I will remember this forever, probably, because it was one of those bling light bulb moments. But I mentioned the first time I played this game was in January 2017 at Chattanooga, right? And so Scott Peterson, the publisher, brought several copies, right? And so the first game of the first day, I was Scott. I want to learn how to play Ireland. I've heard about. I worked so hard. I scrimped. I saved. I hoarded. Blah blah blah. And I bought my miner this shiny new 6/8 train, and that son of a gun in the merger round owned my 6 train. In his, he owned that major company. He orchestrated the merger, and I was like, "What the heck just happened?" And right there, I was like, "Hey, Scott, can I give you some cash for one of the copies of this game, please?" And he's like, "Of course." That he was there to sell them, of course. But that's where that terrible thing that happened to me is what made me love this game.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. And sometimes mergers are like friendly and hey, can we merge our companies because somebody wants a token and they just kind of want to get, and you want to get out from underneath the company. So they're friendly mergers too. I don't want to paint them all with this big bad brush.
Yeah.
But you could definitely have some strategic ones that happen, and but I think it's going to be very group dependent, right?
I'm real glad you said friendly merger, because we do see occasionally, if you're able to own 2 miners that are near to each other in proximity, and you build your own tragic track, cutting other people off but connecting your 2 companies, you do see players merge their own 2 companies. They suggest their own 2 companies, and those things get merged. We see that occasionally.
Right, because especially if you're doing it to stretch your roots and condense your train liability to 1 company instead of 2, because maybe permanents are right around the corner, it can be a great way to kind of get cash influx. And if they've been by themselves running down there in the corner, chances are their stock prices are going to be equivalent, right? You're not usually going to have a cheap one and an expensive one. So
depends on what you part them at and what you've been doing.
Completely fair. Completely fair. But the voting is definitely something to watch out for, and knowing who can vote what at a given time, like in paying attention to the map and what's connected and what can reach different companies and all that. And sometimes you might jokingly propose that merger between 2 other companies, but one of the other players is like, hey, that lets me get rid of this one company I really didn't want anyway. And then all of a sudden now you're voting for it, or you're putting your bid up and saying, hey, who do you want me to vote for that? Because now all of a sudden the other person does want to dump that company, and they have a way out now, and you're just like, well, now I can cash this out and open a new company next round. And so sometimes you think it's silly to just kind of propose this merger, but it might actually work out for somebody else. So you could hurt a player because you were just being silly and goofy. So continue being silly and goofy is my
starting a company directly, a major company directly late in the game, can sometimes be a tool as well.
Sure.
Like most tools in Ireland, they don't really have a comfy handle. The handle of this might cut your hand too, but is when you, depending on the state of the game, of course, right? When you start a company late in the game, you just pick an open city, unreserved, right? Bing, you're there. Well, those can be few and far between, or in really crappy positions. But if it's the last major company, if I start it, and guess what, buddy? Your miner that you're running, and those guys don't have an opportunity. Like, you're going to be running that miner for the rest of the game,
right?
So I get it. The miner companies are 20% shares, but the majors have more tokens. They have, because the miners only have 1, right? So, like, good luck running that 10H that you're going to have to buy with that miner.
Right, so, because one of the things on the map talk that kind of we glazed over is pretty much everything except for Dublin just is a 2-hole. Like, I think there's 1 3-hole that lives on that EM that you can get, but that's it. Like, everything is 2-hole, so it's a very tight map, and with limited track, you might not get the run you think you want.
For sure.
So
If there was a criticism I would have about the merger mechanic and the state of the poverty and the liabilities, all the things that we've talked about in this episode, is that it can foster in people, I've seen it in myself, a desire to actively not play the game while playing the game.
right.
I'm not going to buy that minor because then I'll have that liability. I'm not going to buy this. I'm not going to invest in that, right? And going on a mission to avoid liability. And if too many people do that, it's going to bog the game down, stuff like that. It's not necessarily a winning strategy either, because you're not going to be making a lot of money, stuff like that. But I have seen that occur in me. I've come full circle. I'm like, well, A, that's boring, and B, you're not making any money, so good luck winning. So if you feel that way about Ireland, if you're playing Ireland, you're like, I need to avoid liabilities. Nah, get in there, mix it up, put your boxing gloves on, and get in there and start swinging. Own companies, manipulate the mergers. Get rid of liabilities that way if you can. And you know what? If you end up with one, well, that's baseball, as my dad would say, right?
Right. And
Get in there and have fun, and that's where I'm at now. I don't actively not play the game. I'm playing the game. I'm in there mixing it up.
And I would also argue it's one of the few titles that we get to actively, aggressively at times. An attack is probably a strong word, but have an impact on other players to the point where, if somebody's in the lead, there are potential chances that you have tools in the bag that you can affect them. Like, you can go ahead and, I'm not saying gang up on them and collude, but that might happen naturally, right? Like, everybody gangs up on the leader at some point in this game.
Well, yeah, and to twist that even more is when you got 4, 5, 6 players at the table that have played Ireland a few times. They're familiar with the rules and the mechanics, and everybody's going for it. Then you really got a heavyweight battle going on. And hey, you know what? Sometimes you're the windshield, sometimes you're the bug, right? But get in there, duke it out, use the tools that are there,
right,
rather than avoid. Because and in the end, winning, to me anyway, right? Like, I win when I'm having a good time. If I go bankrupt, I love that as much as if I win. Because ultimately I did win because I got to hang out with some cool people, play a really fun game that has a lot of elbows and edges and everything you want to say.
Yeah, it's definitely unique, and it's one of those games I've really I feel that in playing games, and this is a whole nother kit and caboodle where I play for my best position. Like that's just the way I play any game I'm playing. And sometimes that means picking on the person in last, sometimes that means picking on the person in the front. I'm playing to place myself as best as I can be, and I'm a known quantity, and it can look like a jerk sometimes, especially in 18xx where you're in third place. You just need to worry about your third place. Don't worry about anybody else. Yeah. I don't ascribe to that. I'm I want to do the best I can. And I feel like with Ireland, you can do that. The last time we played this, oh my goodness, the lead kind of surged and then it kind of backed off, and it's swapped around a few times. It wasn't just, a curve with somebody on top and everybody else just falling behind. So it's one that, I keep playing all the way to the end because you just never know. The person in third place buying 2 diesels all of a sudden disrupts everybody, and how can they recover from that? It's a lot of fun to watch. So
it is.
It's sounding a lot like we have feelings, and that's kind of brings us to the gray phase, which is how we feel about this stuff. And for me, I love the fact that you are in it and you are in it for a long time, and that you can actually, I'm not a person who likes being a jerk, but I love the fact that I can still have an impact on other players rather than just, I trashed the stock, or, oh, I laid some harsh track for you, like, or I tokened you out. Like, I feel like that's the core weapons we get, but I kind of feel like there's still a whole nother clip or two sitting there waiting to get used. And that's what I love about this. And it's a lot to learn, and I'm excited to keep diving deeper.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, my feelings are probably pretty obvious, right? Like, there's the one thing about the trains that, I wonder how it would play without those trains. I've never tried. Now I'm wondering if I should try, but that's just one thing. There's so many things that I enjoy about this game. It is a tough game. It's not puppy dogs and rainbows, and so some folks don't enjoy what Ireland has to bring. But when you can find a group of 4, 5, 6 other people that do enjoy what Ireland brings and want to work the tools, man, it's top level fun in my book. It's a very lively game. I love the poverty. I love the tension that it brings. And that tension. This is the one game. Like, I'm never really super attached. If it's an operational game, maybe more so, but I'm never really super attached to my companies, right? They're tools.
Right.
I'm not falling in love with the NYC because I love the NYC. This is a tool. More so in this game than any other, right? Like, I just don't care what I own and when I own it, because I'm hoping not to own too much at some point, right? So,
right.
Yeah, but this game is just a lot of fun for me. I just the 3 words I'll leave it with are poverty, liveliness, and tension.
Yep. And I completely agree. And I also, I kind of like a game that I don't feel is on rails, right? Which is one of the reasons why like 30 gets a little old. Even I think, as much as I enjoy Chesapeake, I think it kind of can suffer from that same thing. Like, do XYZ, it's usually best if you do this. And when you talk strategy, you talk about all those things. But there's so much going on here that I kind of feel like you never, ever play the same game twice, because the companies come out completely differently. So the track's always going to be different. The track is going to be limiting you, and you're going to be cursing. And I just, you summed it up with the word tension. And I think it's not just you and other players, it's you and the map, it's you and the companies coming out, it's you and your wallet, and it's you and what you enjoy. It's like, it's all over the place as to where that tension is. And I enjoy it. I think it's certainly one of the best things I think about the game, and why I A, bought it, and B, will continue to come back to it for sure. Anything else, Tony? Any other feels besides having some Tums laying around for it?
Some Tums and some whiskey.
Right? Outstanding.
Might need a drinker in this game.
It certainly does help me. So let's see. That brings us to our priority deal marker. For those of you who may not know, Tony has an amazing shelf that lives in his basement that had all these unique priority deal markers on it. I fell in love with the idea, and I have slowly started a collection of my own that lives on my shelves too. And so I always like to ask Tony, like, okay, we have Ireland. What is going to be your priority deal marker for this game? Like, what would you have?
I wish I had something permanent and something special. So if anybody's got any ideas, I am all ears. But what I often do, if I have some generic just trains and stuff, but sometimes I'll just grab a potato out of the bin.
Nice.
And, This came from we were playing a 6-player game at a convention a few years ago, and Jeroen Dahman from Splatter was in the game, and he said, "Oh, we're playing for the golden potato."
There you go.
So ever since then, a potato. I'd love to figure out how to get a bronze or a golden potato. I don't know. Maybe I don't know how to do that.
Gold leaf it.
I don't know, how do you bronze this?
Not something I know. The one in the box. One thing that Scott's been doing lately with the new reprints is that he's been putting nice wooden priority deal markers, and he kind of has this awesome cow, Black Angus. So I kind of almost want to paint spots on it and make it more of a Holstein, since that's more of a local thing. But
Nice.
Just thought that was pretty.
I don't own the mass production version of Ireland, so I didn't know it was a cow. That's kind of cool.
There you go. So I wasn't sure if you did or not, but it's I'm really enjoying the new productions he's doing, and the side benefit is that they, while they're still not cheap by any means, relatively speaking, they're still more expensive than a board game. They're becoming much more affordable, and that's what I'm enjoying. Like, we're starting to see prices at or under $100 a game, as opposed to at or under $150 a game for a handmade copy. So it's nice that, that's one really cool side benefit. And I hope he continues to do it. And I hope people who have great ideas continue to maybe think about doing games and continue to design these, because you actually can get something printed, which is not what it was a little while ago, right? Like that's kind of new. So before we wrap up talking about Ireland, we talked about our feels. This is usually the end of our program, but Tony has something he'd like to kind of tease a little bit, I guess is the way we're going to put that. So Tony, what do you have? And this is one of the reasons why we wanted to do this live, is just because it's fun. Do it live. We're recording anyway. We usually, we record on Saturday mornings, and so it's just fun to do it live. So hi to everybody in the chat. We don't interact with you. We'll talk to you once the show's done. But you kind of wanted to talk about this awesome project. You and very little me, a very little M and a very little E. No, not a lot, but some. I've definitely been doing some. So
you undersell your influence, but this is so. Normally, I wear like a wheel tapping shirt when we record, but I'm wearing a track shirt for a reason today, right? Because Trax has a couple of projects that we're going to be talking about over the course of the next couple of months, and so one of them can't let the cat out of the bag yet, but through the month of July, we're going to be sharing information about this particular project that we hope the community will really enjoy. It's been a blast. Mike, Nick, and myself have been working on this. Chris has been, even though he says not a big contributor, he has contributed greatly to this project's final state. And if you want to find out more about it, I'm just going to invite you to follow us on Twitter. Our Twitter handle for Trax is at 18xx_Trax with 2 X's. And through the month of July, we're going to be just leaking out some information, and we hope you get excited about what you see. And then in August, we'll do the same thing with something different.
Right. So we'll probably talk a little bit more in August about the project as a whole, but it's pretty cool. It's pretty exciting. I'm happy to be a part of it, and I think I think you'll all enjoy it when you find out what it is. So it's hard to talk about a thing without talking about a thing, right?
Yeah. The thing is coming.
The thing is coming.
Chris, thanks for letting me say a word about that. I appreciate it, bud.
Oh no, not at all. It's it would certainly. I kind of look at, what wheel tapping is it's kind of our show, but it's also tracks. It's a lot of things. And then, hopefully next year tracks will happen.
Oh, no.
Tracks is.
It is happening.
Yes.
It is happening. Next April, Tracks is back, baby. And it's going to be wide open. Like, we're going to get a big venue, no attendance limit. Like, just get your butt to Denver and let's have some fun in April. Because after the last year and a half, 2 years we've had, guys, we deserve it. Let's get
Absolutely.
out
there. Absolutely. We've been good boys and girls. We're still here. We're still healthy. Let's go have some fun now. So I'll be making a trip to Denver in November, which I'm kind of excited about. So I'll be able to hang out with the gang, and I'm excited for that. That'll be a good time. And then next year we have tracks in the spring, and we're gonna try and do tracks in the fall. So I'm gonna try and do Tracks East in the fall again. So we'll put that back on the docket, as it were, since certainly the inaugural season got beat up by a round of the bad boy. So lots of fun. I think we're gonna try and do some different stuff, like get to there's a local train club that does 1/24th scale train models, the live working 442s and things like that. They literally build that are 6 feet long and drive around on track that they sit on.
Yeah. I've seen some videos of that, dude, where they sit on the locos and stuff.
That
is so cool.
It's literally 2 blocks from my house, so it's they call them PA live steamers. I thought it was all about clams and things, but apparently it's not. So it's a very cool club. They have some videos out on the YouTubes and things like that as well. So the plan is to try and get there maybe on a Sunday morning just to go check it out, so people can kind of nerd out about it a little bit. And then we're also thinking of going to the Strasburg Railroad Museum, kind of home of the PRR around here, so you can see some of the trains that the PRR has. So probably doing that on Friday, and then maybe do a little VIP barbecue picnic thing on Friday night. So, and then so that'll be Labor Day weekend. So we'll be able to game on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So mark your calendars. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. And who knows? I might be able to fly out for the spring. We'll see. And get there. Awesome. Well, this has been a lot of fun. Tony, thanks for doing this. Thanks for hanging out and chat, everyone. What we're going to do is we are going to run the music. We're going to close the show, and then we'll come back and we'll chat with you for a few minutes if you want to. So we'll thank you all for coming. Enjoy, stay safe, and have a good 4th if you're listening to this in time. Thanks for joining us this month. Be sure to tune in next month to see what shenanigans Tony and I will get ourselves into. Tony and I would like to give a special shout out to all the patrons who support the show. Thank you for listening, supporting, and taking care of us. You can also help us out if you want a shirt. Be sure to check us out on Teespring.
Punchboard Media, where we all
bring something
to the table.
pull up a chair
at punchboardmedia.com.